की जय, श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय। Hare Krishna. So let's start with Mangalacharan. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapad Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deen Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratushe Namaha. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavad Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavate Neshtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namah. Krishna. Welcome everyone. So we are reading from 3rd canto, chapter 26, which is fundamental principles of material nature. And today we will be discussing verses 58 to 60. Hastau cha nirbhidet yetam balam tabhyam tatha swarat padau cha nirbhidetyam Vidityetam gatistabhyam tato hari hastau cha nirabhidyetam balam tabhyam tatha swarat padau cha nirbhidyetam gatistabhyam tato hari hastau cha nirabhidyetam balam tabhyam tatha swarat padau cha nirabhidyetam gatistabhyam tato hari balam tabhyam tatha swarat gatistabhyam tato hari gatistabhyam tato hari Thank you. Would Mataji like to try? Thank you. Word by word. Hastau, the two hands. Cha and nirbhidyetam were manifested. Balam, power. Tabhyam, from them. Tata, thereafter. Swarat, Lord Indra. Padav, the 2 feet. Cha and nirbhidyetam became manifested. Gati, the process of movement. Tabhyam, from them. Tata, then. Hari, Lord Vishnu. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thereafter the 2 hands of the universal form of the Lord became manifested, and with them the power of grasping and dropping things, and after that Lord Indra appeared. Next the legs became manifested, and with them the process of movement, and after that Lord Vishnu appeared. So I'll just read it. Thereafter the 2 hands of the universal form of the Lord became manifested, and with them the power of grasping and dropping things, And after that, Lord Indra appeared. Next, the legs became manifested, and with them, the process of movement. And after that, Lord Vishnu appeared. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The deity presiding over the hands is Indra, and the presiding deity of movement is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. Vishnu appeared on the appearance of the legs of the Virat Purusha. So I'm just reading the next verse. You do not need to repeat. That's right. Nadyasya nirbhidyanta tabhyo lohitam abhratam nadyastata sambhavan udram nirbhidyatam. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So the veins of the universal body became manifested, and thereafter the red corpuscles or blood. In their wake came the rivers, the deities presiding over the veins, and then appeared an abdomen. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Blood veins are compared to rivers. When the veins were manifested in the universal form, the rivers in the various planets were also manifested. The controlling deity of the rivers is also the controlling deity of the nervous system. In Ayurvedic treatment, those who are suffering from the disease of nervous instability are recommended to take a bath by dipping into a flowing river. Verse 60. Shut pipase tatha syatam samudrastav etayor abhut athasya hridayam vinnam hridayan mana uthitam. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Next grew feelings of hunger and thirst, and in their wake came the manifestation of the oceans. Then a heart became manifest, and in the wake of the heart, the mind appeared. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So the ocean is considered to be the presiding deity of the abdomen, where the feelings of hunger and thirst originate. When there is an irregularity in hunger and thirst, one is advised, according to Ayurvedic treatment, to take a bath in the ocean. So, Hare Krishna. So, as we see, we are reading this unit. It's quite technical because it's about the fundamental principles of material nature. You know, sometimes it could be like difficult to understand. In the last few verses, for example, we saw how the Lord, who is the origin of the whole creation, He enters into the universe. We heard about the description of a universal egg, the universe in the shape of an egg, and about its different layers. And we also saw the different senses and different demigods who are the controllers, you know. So it's all like quite complex, and sometimes, you know, we find it difficult to understand because we think like, oh, nothing being taught in our school in that sense. So we need to say to ourselves, it might be difficult to understand, you know, but let me just keep on trying, keep me doing the devotional services, and Bhagavatam will relate itself by the mercy of Guru and Krishna. I will share a pastime which I found quite relevant directly and indirectly to the topic, and I'll basically say why I found it once I narrate the pastime. So it was the pastime of Virochana and Indra, and it's from one of the Upanishads, but I read it in the book called Demystifying Reincarnations. It's a book by His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhuji. So Indra, as we know, he is the king of the Devatas or godly beings, and Virochana is the king of ungodly beings. So both of them, they wanted to understand about the soul and what's the nature of the soul. And they heard, oh, Brahmaji, you know, he always says it's important to know the self. And he describes it as free from sin, old age, disease, hunger, thirst, grief. So, and he said, everyone should try to find out about the self, try to understand the self. Only then you can have like the or the complete fulfillment. So they both approached Brahma and expressed their desire like, to seek his guidance. So they both accepted him as a spiritual mentor. So then they had quite disciplined and austere lifestyle. And after purifying themselves for about 32 years, they asked Brahmaji about more knowledge and insight. So Brahmaji said, the person you see with your eyes is the self. That self or the soul is fearless, immortal. So when we hear something, we repeat like, did I understand it correctly? So they did the same thing. They said, okay, so what we see, the reflection, in lake or mirror, so that is the soul. Brahmaji nods. Look at yourself in some water and tell me what you see. So they both said, like they looked at their complete self from like head to the tailholes. And then Brahmaji asked them, okay, trim your hair, trim your toenails, wear new clothes. And then tell me, what you see. So both saw the reflection, those two people. But they had like haircut, toenails being cut, new clothes. Then Brahmaji said, oh, what you see, that reflection is the fearless and immortal soul. So both of them were quite satisfied, like they were quite happy, they got some new knowledge. So Vidoshana left for the ungodly planets and he announced there like, oh, this body, it's non-different to the soul, which we know, is not the correct understanding. And while Indra was returning, he was like, oh, hang on, how can this be right? The reflection changed. When I change clothes, when I had the haircut. So when the body changes, the body perishes. So the soul perishes? How can then it be immortal? He said, immortal. Let me go back to him and ask. So when he went back, he asked him to stay another, 32 years and do austerities. And then after that, Brahmaji said, when you in your dream see I, that is the self you are seeking. That is the fearless and immortal soul. Indra got quite pleased. He was like, oh, now I got the answer. But again, he got a bit disturbed, like, oh, what I see in my dream, sometimes I feel pain, sometimes, I get scared, if it's a nightmare, like, so how can it be that self? And dream ends. So how can it be then fearless and immortal? Because dream is kind of ever-changing, So again he went to Brahmaji and he said, okay, another 32 years. And then Brahmaji said, the self is hidden in the deep sleep, which is like dreamless. So as before, Indra got satisfied, but again he became a bit unsure, like, because in deep sleep, the self, we don't realize anything. But then again, with the fearless and immortal, how can you relate it? Then Brahmaji said, okay, stay for a little while, a little longer. Another 5 years passed. And Brahmaji then told him the ultimate truth. The soul inside this physical body, that is the soul which is inside this physical body. So like horse is tied to a cart. So soul is tied to this body. So the soul hears and sees through, like, the senses we were talking about. This is kind of, one of the points I found it relevant. So we talk about like senses came in. And so soul sees through the eyes, hears through the ears, and it has got eternal relationship with the Lord. With this pastime of the story, we also need to appreciate, or we can appreciate, what's required to understand our true identity. One, even though we said it's all difficult or it's so hard, but one should not give up. Keep trying. We may get, mixed up with our identity, like Virochana, or both of them started with that at the gross level. But then as in the further inquired, then it was misidentified with the like subtle body. So after that, it's like the true identity is beyond physical and all beyond these material coverings. This pastime also tells us about like the three different levels of consciousness. One, Jagriti, like the waking consciousness, which we are in the right now, aware of our surroundings, what's happening. Misidentify, we may misidentify ourselves with this gross physical body. The starting point, for Indra and Virochana. Then Swapna, the dreaming consciousness, where we may act or perceive things, but it's at the mental platform. So we may identify or misidentify ourselves with the mind. So Brahmaji's next answer, like I in the dreams. The third, Shushupti, which is dreamless sleeping consciousness. So no consciousness at all, which Brahmaji said in his third answer. And beyond these three was a soul's original consciousness, which is Turiya, spiritual wakeful consciousness. So Indra found out after like so much introspection and austerities, at the Jagriti level, with our senses, like we even see people based on the pleasure, or based on their potential to give us pleasure. You may say, how? Even when someone is quite good looking, I can't take eyes off, maybe something beautiful they are wearing or they are beautiful, like, that person is so beautiful. Like, but then if someone is not so beautiful, as per what our eyes see, we may not give, or stare or keep glancing at them. Even someone, at work or, that person is so senior, people would go and say, hello, how are you? And someone junior, yeah, okay, let him wait, or that doesn't really matter because I don't see that potential, benefit I would get or pleasure I would get. In terms of it could be money, some wealthy person comes. So we may not sometimes realize, but this is how we act, at the material, when we are at the material conscious level. Anyway, so reading about all these senses and how they came into existence. So given, we are given these senses, so we hear knowledge, it enters our ears. Then we contemplate, think about it. It enters into our head. And then when we internalize it, apply it, then it becomes jnana. Then it becomes vijnana. So jnana is like with the knowledge. So, but you may say, I hear so many things, like when I go to work, people talk, I don't intentionally Eve teasing kind of thing, but I do hear things, news, so many things. Is it all like knowledge or? But the thing is, I don't even pay attention and I forget it all. Like I don't remember everything what I hear, which is correct. We may not realize, but they do leave some impressions. And with hearing, when we say philosophically, we say discussing philosophy. So it enters through our ears, and then we contemplate upon it. And then when we apply it, becomes a jnana or realization. So Srila Prabhupada, he used to say, or he always says, we should not hear like a hog. What it means is, a hog can have like big ears, but they can't really understand philosophy. So it means like hearing in animal consciousness, or if we don't contemplate or even hear properly, then we would stay at that animal consciousness and, with the four things, eating, mating, sleeping, defending, we would be at that level, even though we are in human body. So to elevate our consciousness, we need to contemplate. After hearing, contemplate, But sometimes what we hear or read in the scriptures, we say, it doesn't really make sense to me. I can't even relate to it because it's not being taught in my school, or, it's not something I heard. I didn't grow up hearing all these things, For example, when we say, sense gratification leads to misery. Really? But it is so much fun, isn't it? But we see in Bhagavad Gita, it's like, yehi samsparsha jab hoga, dukkha yonaya evate. So it is the womb of misery. But what we saw in movies, or if you turn on TV, the advertisement, they say, do this or drink this or eat this, you'll get so much fun or pleasure. So it kind of contradicts. So His Great Chaitanya Prabhuji, in one of his lectures, he explained we just can't wish away all our preconceptions, based on maybe our experiences or what we earlier heard or been grown up. But we need to challenge them, counter them by conscious contemplation. Okay, I heard that, I know this, so this is knowledge, this is jnana. So I've been thinking like this. Yes, sense gratification, for example, leads to pleasure. But people, who say, oh, it's so much pleasure, are they really having fun? At work when you go, oh, it's Friday, yay, what would you be doing? Or going to the pub, people say, and what would you do there? Or just drink, have few drinks, and then what? They say, I won't be carrying, my this thing or that, because I won't even be aware of my surroundings, Because sometimes they throw up, oh, you know what, I threw up in the cab and this. And so they are not aware of their surroundings. Is it really pleasure? Then they say, oh, I had a horrible time. And then the next day they say, oh, the hangover thing. Anyway, so they harm themselves and they harm others sometimes. So it doesn't lead to satisfaction. Maybe temporary, tiny, pleasure, momentarily pleasure. So when we contemplate and we see closely, then we understand. So knowledge, went into ears, doesn't go out, rather we contemplate it so in head, and it becomes settled over there. But unless we accept it, we internalize it, it doesn't become vijnana. So intellectually understanding, not emotionally, internalizing that I accept it. With this, for example, sense gratification leading to pleasure. But how and why it happens, it needs time in terms of purification. So Prabhuji yesterday touched on jnana and vijnana, in his yesterday's class. He was talking about jnana, internalizing, so not just at the level of head, but at the level of heart. So accepting things, and we accept when it goes into heart, yes, then it becomes realizing, yes, I accept that reality to be true, rather than just knowing the reality as a matter of fact. So how does it relate to our today's verses? So in 59th verse, we just heard, it speaks about Ayurveda. So Ayurveda, we saw, those who suffer from disease of nervous instability are recommended to take bath by dipping into a flowing river. And the 60th verse, it says, when there's irregularity in hunger and thirst, one is advised, according to Ayurveda, to take bath in the ocean. So this is knowledge. But we say, does it really happen? Is it effective? People nowadays may not even believe, So recently I went to a doctor for something, and I asked, should I avoid like the cold stuff, and just have hot drinks? Would it be more beneficial? And he was like, yeah, I know what you mean. You're referring to Ayurveda thing? I heard about it, but medical science? Nah, we don't believe in all these things. It's okay. Eat whatever you want to, drink whatever you want to, yeah. So we saw like there are different demigods, as controllers for different things. We say, oh, Indra controls rain, Indra controls hands. But if you say, oh, you want rain, do some yajna. What? The fire sacrifice, it'll bring rain. So people may not believe it, that's a different thing. They say, oh, it's pure science, it's purely science. Water evaporates, condensation happens, clouds form, and then it rains. It's simple. They don't really understand about, there is someone controller there. Yeah? Because if it's that simple, can I just boil water in my kitchen, make some cloud, and use it for my kitchen garden? So there's something, beyond this, what we say, oh, it's so simple science. No. So, again, coming back, we may not fully understand it, we just heard the pastime, but which is okay. Yeah, because people, when they say knowledge or science, it's jnana. It is knowledge because, again, I would be referring to the class. In the class I heard by His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhuji, he said science is actually largely karma. And I said, oh wow, it's karma. People think scientists do so much thinking, deep thinking. They try to find out what's the nature of reality. So this should be, not the karma. But the thing is, they do the thinking, but to make things better in terms of technology. And that technology would help us with more sense gratification. So it's karma kanda thing, kind of give and take thing. But we see in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Mai arpita mano buddhir. So 8.7, he says, offer your mind and intelligence to me. And why these two faculties, like mind and intelligence? We got other senses. Because they comprise of our subtle body. And wherever our subtle body goes, eventually we go there. So if our subtle body goes towards Krishna, so it's like we will go towards Krishna. Because he says, keep remembering me. Then what will happen if we remember him? We say, offer the work to him. So when you offer your subtle body, because you say, Mai arpita mano buddhi, throughout our life, so we develop the love for Krishna. So we may have some pleasure opportunities, but we'll just turn away from them and turn towards Krishna. We'll focus towards Krishna. And then we'll attain Krishna. He said, Mam evishyasi asamshaya. So without doubt. I'll just read the purport and translation from 8.7. So Krishna instructs Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. And Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport, this instruction to Arjuna is very important for all men engaged in material activities. The Lord does not say that one should give up his prescribed duties or engagement. One can continue them and at the same time think of Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna. This will free one from material contamination and engage the mind and intelligence in Krishna. By chanting Krishna's name, one will be transferred to the supreme planet, Krishna Loka, without a doubt. So, we are engaged in material activities, and while engaging ourselves in material activities, we remember Krishna. And how can we remember Krishna? Is through our sadhana. That's why we say sadhana is very important. Because it's not just like we are just engaged ourselves in the worldly things and all of a sudden we would say, oh, Krishna, I remember him. No. We need to have some quality time with him through chanting so that Krishna comes to our foreground rather than just stay in our background. So, for example, we come here to take darshan of Gopinath. We are hearing we discuss Srimad Bhagavatam, we read Bhagavad Gita, the scriptural studies, deity worship, association with devotees. This is all basically, help us remembering Krishna. So it brings Krishna in the foreground. So we want to remember Krishna, no doubt. And we say, by practice, we will remember him. But the good thing is, he assures, asamshaya, without doubt, he will come to him. He reassured Arjuna, if you do this, you will come back to me. So for us, Srila Prabhupada, he told us to follow this process of Krishna consciousness throughout our lives. Even if we have many, many disqualifications, conditionings over births after births, but we would be able to return back to Krishna. So in the past time, we heard Indra spent 101 years purifying himself, trying to know. For us, Srila Prabhupada, in a very simple way, presented the truth and his realizations in his books. We just need to apply them. Because unless we apply, so scriptures would be like a map. You have a map, you want to go from Sydney to Perth. But just having a map won't help you. You have to take action, you have to do something about it. You can't reach Perth unless you actually do something. It could be compared to recipe. I may have recipe for pizza or rasgulla, but unless actually I cook it, recipe won't help me in eating or in making in that sense. I need to do something. We may see, in our day-to-day lives, many examples. For example, I said, I went to doctor. So doctor prescribed medicine. But unless I take the medicine, I may not get, better. So scriptures are like that. We read in second canto, chapter 3 of the Bhagavatam itself. We saw a few analogies on this, how to apply these senses. So for example, in 2.3.21, it's mentioned the upper body or the upper portion of the body. It may be crowned with a nice silk turban, but if it's not bowing down in front of the Lord, then it's just a heavy burden on your body. The hands, we may decorate them, with bangles and things, but they are like hands of a dead person, a dead man, if they are not engaged in the service of the Lord. A few more analogies being given there in that section, like legs. Because we are talking about senses and all these things, how the creation and all. So with legs, for example, if we don't come to visit Gopinath or don't go to the Dham, Vrindavan, Mayapur, so they are considered like tree trunks. So with demigods, they are also meant to serve as the parts of the body, serve the Lord. So different sacrifice, performed to please Him. But then we think, okay, what prevents jnana from becoming vijnana? Like, what prevents this knowledge, in the application then? We know, we heard, I read it so many times, I heard it so many times. Two key obstacles are desires, which originate from mind, and the doubts, which originate from the intelligence. So someone may say, okay, which one is more dangerous, like mind, or the desires, or the doubts? Both are dangerous, no doubt. But doubts are being considered more dangerous. Why? With desires, if we have a desire, we say, I wanted this. And then what we say, I should not have done this. I should not have, eaten so much or eaten that. So desires make us feel low. I should not have, But if we have doubt, will we go back? Does this process work? Is it for real? Then, should I believe in it? What happens is, we become, or think ourselves as superior. And what's the problem with that? We may not even seek any guidance. I'm not interested. I don't think it will. So then it doesn't, we don't become humble, we don't become submissive. And that's an obstacle. So what's the solution, the remedy being given? To deal with desires? Yes, chanting. Once purified. We deal with doubts? Again, chanting will help. But we need to do the systematic study of the scriptures. And also we need to be patient. It's like, I read it, for 10 hours continuously, but I don't think I can see any change in myself. Be patient, You just read, just for 10 hours or 10 days. Or I have doubts, but no one is clearing all those doubts. Some of them being cleared. So be patient. Don't let those doubts stop yourself. Park them, and then, if we have some senior devotee, we can ask those doubts. But continue our efforts. So, I will just summarize and then finish. So, what we looked at today is the verses from 58 to 60. We saw about different senses and the presiding deities, how they came into existence. We discussed about how it can be, or it can feel, quite difficult to understand all these technicalities. And we saw the pastime of Indra and Virochana. So even though it may seem difficult, but we should keep trying, keep doing the devotion service, and Bhagavatam will really reveal itself by the mercy of Guru and Krishna. We also spoke about the 3 levels of consciousness: Jagrati, the waking consciousness; Swapna, dreaming consciousness; Sushupti, the dreamlessness, sleeping consciousness; and Turiya. And we discussed in Jagrati, we may be seeing people based on their potential to give us sense pleasure. We talked about Jnana and Vijnana, knowledge and realization. So with the senses, we spoke about hearing with the ears, and then contemplating it to realize it by applying it, taking some action. So because otherwise the philosophy will just settle, the scriptures settle in our head, but unless we internalize, we can't get much benefit. No doubt we will get benefit. And we also spoke about what are the obstacles when Krishna says, offer your mind and intelligence. So desires and doubts. And we spoke about how Srila Prabhupada made it so much easier and simpler for us to remember Krishna through the practices of Krishna consciousness. So we will finish here. Any comments or questions? Okay, so we'll finish here. Thank you for your time and kind attention. Srimad Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagavan ki jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga.